Charleston's own Darius Rucker. No bigger South Carolina fan than him. The guy plays on stage every single night wearing a Gamecocks hat. Today, he brought his son Jack up from Mount Pleasant and was sitting in the first row. I caught up with him at center court, Madison Square Garden, right after the game. No bigger South Carolina fan than Charleston's own Darius Rucker. D, you're crying.
Man, I mean, this is crazy, you know.
Scotty, while we have you, and with the picturesque background behind you, the College of Charleston should arrive sometime tonight in San Diego. Will you be their official Uber driver?
No, I think the NCAA pays for a charter bus for them. So luckily, the Nissan Versa that I rented with no power windows, I don't think we're going to fit a bunch of 7-foot guys in there. I went cheap on the rental car. I couldn't even plug in my cell phone. That's why it's about to die right now. That's the problem. When you cheap out on things, you don't always get the best quality. But I'll tell you what, I'll take it, Dino. I'm in San Diego. This is good. So talk about humble starts. Tony Elliott called the game-winning play in the national championship game along with Jeff Scott, the guy who caught that touchdown. Hunter Renfro, a former walk-on. That little former walk-on, 5'7", called up to the front today by the President of the United States, Donald Trump. He said, kid, pretty good thing you didn't drop that pass. Obviously, he didn't, and they are here today in Washington, D.C. Off the board. Good evening. I'm Scott Eisberg. The wait until after midnight this morning, but it is 100% worth it. Jarrell Brantley is an NBA player, the third NBA draft pick ever from George Street, following Anthony Johnson and Andrew Goudlock.
See you inside.
I'd like to ask you a question if we can before the meeting.
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Could you just explain, you know, the parting of ways with Jamel President?
We're going to discuss it during executive session.
Well, executive session, is that going to be open or closed? Closed, so we won't be able to get any answers from that. So I was wondering if you could just answer why the parting of ways. Talk to you, ma'am?
Not right now, thank you.
Well, I mean, could you discuss what happened in executive session?
I can answer that question.
Well, I'd like to ask the principal, please.
You're not here to follow me in my office, right?
Well, I'd like to just ask you some questions there, because you've avoided it both times now. Don't you think the public deserves a response? Ma'am, don't you think the public deserves a response? Looking for answers. Good evening. I'm Scott Eisberg. Very little coming from Oceanside Academy. Very little coming from Jamel President. Did he do anything wrong to deserve what happened? Was there something that prompted the discussions to start parting ways?
You'd have to talk to the principal.
The principal said she didn't want to talk before the meeting.
Well, then that's the principal's decision. This is a personnel issue, and I'm sure you understand. You're in the media. You know how things work. So it's from what I know, it's a mutual agreement between the principal and the school and the basketball coach.
Scott Eisberg is standing by with somebody there to your right. Scotty, who's that you got there with you?
I don't know. Hi, what's your name?
Dare.
Dare?
Yes.
Where are you from, Dare?
Wilmington.
Wow, she came all the way from Wilmington, Delaware, or North Carolina? North Carolina, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
North Carolina.
Hey,
and she's
Scotty.
got friends, too. They think they're on the Tennis Channel right now.
Yeah, they are.
They're not on the Tennis Channel. They're on Channel 4. They can't see that in Wilmington, but it doesn't matter.
Scotty, ask her right now if she wants your autograph.
Okay. Dean wants to know if you want my autograph.
Yes.
Not on your. I don't want to ruin the tennis ball. So if you get like a ticket stub, I'll sign that, but not the tennis ball because I don't want to ruin those. Those are like $15. I don't want to ruin those for you guys. 35? Holy smokes, 35, Dean. Are you buying that for the boys for their birthday? Is that the next birthday present?
Do you know how many balls I've bought for the boys in the last 22 years?
I can't even do 35 times 3. I think that's like 115 if my math
actually
serves me correct.
it's 105,
Regardless.
Einstein.
105, whatever. Stop it. You didn't tell me this would be a math test. Come on, Dino. That's not fair. That's not fair to make this a math test on me right now.
I have a question for you.
Here we go.
Do you really need a tour guide of Bourbon Street? I mean, use your eyes,
sure.
my son. Just use your eyes. You'll be fine.
My wife told me to put the blinders on. Put the blinders on. Nothing happens with beads on Bourbon Street. She said, you're a father of 2 kids now. There is nothing happening. You got to be in bed right after your late live shot. I said, maybe I'll have some gumbo at the hotel, and that's it. There will be no Bourbon Street later, I promise. Wrapping her head around getting married anywhere but McClellanville, impossible for Jessica Kennedy McClellan.
Very important. You know, this is my hometown. It's where I grew up.
Now living in New York, the nostalgia of her waterfront property, the salt in the air, the boats in the distance, the picture-perfect, serene setting for a laid-back southern soiree. Unless, of course, a hurricane is barreling in.
When we heard on Tuesday, I think someone in the news said it would be here 2 p.m. on Saturday. That was their current prediction, and that was the exact time and date of our original ceremony. And I just went and took a nap. I said I'm gonna lay down for a second. And when I woke up, the sun was shining through my window and it was so beautiful. And I just thought to myself, let's just get married before it comes. Let's just get married on Thursday. So we started putting that plan into motion to see if it could happen. And I think it's gonna turn out really nice.
Plans are one thing, execution a whole nother story.
First person I called was the officiant, and she said, great, let's do it, I'll be there. And then the next person I called was our MC, and his response, he's an old friend of mine, and he texted me, hell yeah. So that was good to go as well. And then I asked the lady who is baking our cake if she could have it ready by today, and she said yes as well.
Amazing how months of planning can be changed in a day, but memories made by those who surround you and where you make them. For this bride, it's all she ever wanted.
Whew, I'm just overwhelmed with how everyone pulled it together and was just so willing to be here for us. It really makes you know how lucky you are that we have these families who support us and friends who driving into a hurricane warning area, it means a lot. And I just feel so loved.
Of course, once they walk down the aisle and exchange their vows, the ceremony finished, the party begins. There is one more change that might have to be made for this wedding. Changing the wedding song, is it going to be like Purple Rain or Rock You Like a Hurricane or anything like that?
We
for the wedding
really should. It's definitely added to the playlist.
A whole lot going on here in Santa Clara, San Jose, up in San Francisco, plenty going on. We took a ride up there and took a ride down Lombard Street. We are about to cross onto Lombard Street, the most crooked street in America. Darren, what do you think about this? How do you think our rental car is handling this?
I think the Hyundai has it handled, Scotty. And we've got the wonderful driving. That's the...
The driving is the key. And your favorite Alabama player ever would be Dabo Sweeney, correct?
Well, we love Dabo because, you know what, we're going to steal him from Clemson when Coach Saban retires.
Oh, there you go.
He's a homeboy, so it'll be like when Coach Bryant came, Mama calls. When Mama calls, you have to come home.
Check around your perimeter to make sure you were safe.
Well, it's funny, Dean, you say that, because I don't know if I was a little delayed on this live shot. I was kind of pointing over there and saying, oh, hold on 1 second, hold on 1 second. It was actually the security guard telling me I'm not supposed to be going live here right now. I didn't check with public security, but he didn't say anything about mountain lions. Yeah. So I apologize for the slight delay in my live shot. I was telling the guy, I'll be fine. I'm just talking about basketball. He didn't mention anything about coyotes or mountain lions or anything like that. But if you look behind me, I mean, you can see all the way to the ocean. It is absolutely gorgeous up here on the campus of the University of San Diego. The Toreros is their name. Makes it a very eerie, odd feeling down here in Marion Square. I can tell you the police helicopter is the most noticeable thing because it has hovered over and over again with that blaring spotlight coming right down where we're standing. It just makes it an eerie feeling to be down here, a bit of an unsettled feeling. Ripped and ready to show it. Good evening, I'm Scott Eisberg. He's a mainstay in low country football, the former head coach at James Island, currently an assistant at Fort Dorchester. John Patterson always building young men. These days, though, fully focused on building his body. Always hard-nosed, always hard-bodied. John Patterson always hard-pressed to pass up a challenge.
There's nothing like team sports, and nothing will ever take the place of being a football player, a football coach, but it's kind of all I got left,
He's still got football in his life, but what really cranks his chain, the 18 or so hours a week he spends at Gold's Gym on James Island. A few years ago, on a Friday night, we joked about it. John Patterson, sun's out, guns out. We actually go to the same gym, John Patterson and I. But this is no joke.
The show I did 6 weeks ago, they got my body fat at 4.9. I eat the same thing every day, pretty much. I ate half a cup of oatmeal and a cup of egg whites for breakfast, a shake somewhere about 3 hours later. Then I'll alternate a carb and a protein with just a protein.
The proof in the proverbial pudding that he wouldn't eat. But the pictures prove this, a well-oiled, nearly 61-year-old bodybuilding machine.
It's just always been a hobby, and now it's I've got a chance to qualify for the Nationals, and I figured I owe it to myself to at least once in my life line up with the best and see how I stack up.
So on July 20th in Pittsburgh, with a national bodybuilding championship at stake, Coach P will grease up and strip down.
I can't imagine how satisfying it would be. It'd be the cherry on top of everything I guess I've done individually.
John Patterson spent years preaching patience, passion, pursuit to his players. Time to practice what he preaches.
People don't think it's weird when somebody is a runner and they go run a marathon. Well, they're not going to win the Boston Marathon, but they run the race to beat the clock and beat their best time. And nobody thinks that's unusual. But if you go up on stage in your underwear, you know, everybody thinks that's weird. But if you're a lifter, that's all you got.
Right.
You need a finish line. I think as athletes, we need some kind of a barometer of where we are at this point in our lives.
Patterson is trying to raise some money for his expenses competing in Pittsburgh. Any money he raises over his costs, he's donating to brain injury research. Reach out to me via social media or email. I would be more than happy to put you in touch with Coach Patterson. Finally, a little college baseball. Citadel Hall of Famer Dan McBride